So today's lesson will be on making a ritual cloak. I prefer the cloak over a robe or other options because just for aesthetics, I just like the look better. And here are just a few examples so you can see how the cloak completely covers with no sleeves. Versus having the usual garb. So this is more like what it will be, like that. Only mine will not be quite as dark. Mine is going to be green and brown. So I will have it be reversible, but mostly the brown on the outside for grounding, and then of course the green on the inside, which is more of like an inner personality of energy. The best way to go about sewing, I think really, as long as you have a sewing machine, I think anyone can sew. You just don't want to bite off more than you can chew. You want to make sure that the project you choose isn't going to be overwhelming and far beyond what you're capable of. And sometimes it's hard to find out what that is. I often choose to do things that are very difficult, and I get through it, but I look back and say, wow, I really kind of wish I didn't pick that one. This is one of those things that for an outfit is extremely easy because you're not dealing with sleeves, you're not dealing with pockets. It's a project I think just about anyone could do, so long as you have a sewing machine. If you're doing it by hand, that's an entirely different story. So here's my machine. You can get them for about $100, 99, something like that. They won't have a lot of features, but for this, you won't need a lot of features. And the basics of a sewing machine, or at least for mine, you have your top. That's going to go through and stitch the top, and then you have your bobbin, which is in the bottom, and in that housing there. And so I'm not going to go over too much on the machine itself because it does vary. Every machine is put together and runs a little differently, and the dials are all different. But that's kind of the general rule of thumb, is you're always going to have a bobbin, and then you're always going to have your spool up top, and a few minor settings. More importantly, though, I want you to learn how to make your own pattern. I personally find that the pre-made patterns are no easier than the ones I make for myself, and on top of that, they never seem to fit right. I can never get a custom good fit from them. So the best way to do this is to start doing a few drawings, as you can see here. I had in my head an idea of what I thought I wanted, and of course you change your mind, or at least I do, all the time, and that's perfectly all right. So I began thinking that maybe I wanted a long hood, and to perhaps embellish it, I have a leaf here. Some people I see do tassels. And then I more recently am deciding that maybe I'll do something a bit more simple and will not do the tassel, because with it being reversible, again, I was starting to get into things being a little more complicated than I would like. And so if you're not familiar with making reversible garments that flip inside out, this sort of thing can be a little tricky in how to get it to all work. And anyway, I won't go into details. The simpler the design, the better, especially if it's going to be a reversible item. The best thing to do after you have your drawing is to decide what you think the pattern would look like. So you're taking a two-dimensional form and making it three-dimensional. You're wrapping it. The best way to test your design is to make a miniature, and that's what this is. So always keep your scraps because they're perfect for this. This is a scrap from a bag that I made. I'm going to try and do this one-handed here. Come on. Of course, it flipped. So this is my makeshift pattern. And so this I left unsewn because this is what will attach to the rest of the cloak. And then this, of course, is enclosed because that is the enclosed part of the hood. And so by putting my finger in, I kind of see how gravity would, oh, it's not doing it for me. Anyway, gravity would pull the tail end down and it would create folds like that. And so you can kind of get the gist of what it would look like. And so I decided that maybe it was a little too much. I don't know. I'm not sure I like the way that was. So I think I'm going to do without that and just extend this, make it really long so that when I do attach it, it folds under and creates more like this. Creates a lot of folding fabric, which I think is a lot prettier than having excess fabric with embellishments. But that's just me. Maybe you like the embellishments. Maybe you'd want to put bells, or maybe you'd want to put ribbons. I don't know, whatever you'd like, tassels. But for me, I think I like it folding under better. So really, it's going to be a standard hood, only it's going to be a lot longer in length, so that when it rests, this extra length tucks under. If you can get an idea of what I mean with my fingers in the three-dimensional, how it will create this look. So again, I mean, making this miniature really helped me decide that this really wasn't what I thought I wanted. Better to figure that out now on a tiny scrap than to cut your fabric and then realize it's not what you wanted. It's a very bad thing to realize. So then I'm on to the rest of the cloak. Fairly simple. You have a back. The back is one seamless piece. The front is two pieces because you want it to open. I have a tie. I think I'm going to find like a little metal piece to clasp it together. But I want a fairly low neck because I don't want it cropping right to my chin. I know I own hoodies that do that, and I don't like that. It's too close to my face. So I know that I'm going to want a lower cut front. So these are details you want to work out ahead of time. I do have a lovely assistant here. You don't have to have a mannequin, but she certainly helps me to work things out. It's a lot easier than trying to do everything on yourself. You can go online and find them actually with your measurements. So that was kind of cool that I have my replica so that I can ensure that everything will fit correctly. So you can see on the back, no seam. So you are going to, or I will measure on the back. And being that this is a low cut front, I'm thinking I'm going to have the back come up a little bit higher to support that. What I mean by support is that the lower the front, the higher the back needs to be, because a friendly spider that's going to jump away. I'm just going to ignore him. So the lower the front, the higher the back needs to be to balance it. Because if you have both low, you're going to have instability here, and it's not, you know, it's going to waver and act stupid on you. So for the cloak, I'm thinking for more stability, I'm going to do a higher back. The hood will, of course, be attached to that, which will help in my design, because the higher the hood is attached, the more overflow and nice folds I will get in the back, because they will be attached. And just the excess volume will come over the back. So all the more reason to do a higher back on this, is I really want the volume to kind of flow back, and it'll hold my hair better too, because I do have long hair. So that's going to be nice. The front, not as low. I'm thinking maybe more like down to here, just so that the front of the hood comes down and loops up, because I still want volume. I still want that. If it were down to here, it would just be like a straight line, because I think the length would end right about here. So bringing it up will ensure that I still have some volume for it to fold under and look really pretty and nice in the front. So these are all things you want to think about ahead of time. before you begin cutting anything. And of course I have an actual hoodie here just to study and look at. Although this is far too small for the design I want, it does demonstrate how they are put together. And so as you can see, you have two pieces really. So you have really the profile. Those are the two pieces. And they connect to what I had described before. So you have the front, which is made up of two, and then you have the back, which is one solid piece. So again, it's just reiterating what in reality it is. So I'm just going to put it on her so you can see it. Sorry, just trying to put this on. Okay, so again, so you can see what I'm talking about here. The back being one piece, the front being comprised of two. We're not going to worry about sleeves, so this is just going to be rounded off. I'm going to have mine taper out because I want the volume at the bottom. And then of course we have this. So you can see here, if this hoodie were taller, if there were more volume, you can already see here how it begins to fold, how it does that, which is what I want. Just unfortunately this one isn't quite long enough. By the time the head is in there, it's pretty straight. So again, just showing you what I'm going for, and if this is the same for you, what you would want to go for. So again, if I had the volume, this would have more fabric in the back and it would be much prettier. So I'm going to lay out my fabric and begin with, I like to use eye pencils. They're cheaper and I think easier to use than the chalk line pencils that they sell at Joann's or other fabric stores. So I'm going to lay out my fabric and begin drawing, and then I'll show you the next step. So as you can see, I've begun to lay down my pattern. I'm using objects that I already own because I already know how they fit. And although they may not fit perfectly, I can try them on and see what parts need to be changed and what needs to be kept. In this case, even though I was showing you and demonstrating on this sweater because it fits snugly and I could show you the shape, you know, of the pattern itself, the way it will look. Even though I use that, I don't want to use it for my cloak because it's far too fitting. So instead I'm using a bathrobe that I have. Now the bathrobe, as you can see, I have it overlapping here. I don't want to use this part. It just fans out a little more than I wanted. So it's just a little change that's easy to make that will make my cloak fit the way that I want it to fit. And notice that up here, I went ahead and pinned the collar, you know, so I have it in half. And the sleeve I just folded over so that I could see the way that the shoulder will go, like that. And so this pin just tells me where I want my fastening pin in the front. So I know that my hood needs to span this length. Now how do I know this? Because when I tried it on, tried to envision my shoulders are in here, my neck and my head are up here. As I put it on, the way that the neckline went down, it kind of meets right about here. And I think that my hood coming from way up here and flowing all the way down to here would be very elegant and nice. So it would make for a very long neckline, and that's somewhat what I'm kind of after at this point. I really liked the way it looked when I tried it on and envisioned the way that the hood would go. So that's what I'm going to do. Is it's going to be a very, very long hood in the end because it needs to span at least from here where my fastener is going to be to here, and on top of that it needs to span to the top of my head. and then come around, you know. So it's going to be really, really large. So keep that in mind. Now, what I've done here with this little tool, this is what you use to measure for your hemline or anything like that. When you're sewing, this pattern here that I'm using, if I were to cut directly on this line, this would actually be too small because I still need to fold in to cover the edge. And even if I don't, I still, when I sew, I will lose more space. So initially, if I want this to be the exact size, I actually need to go out so that when I sew on this line, you know, where it pinches, it will still give me this. And how I came up with this, we'll go up here. On my sewing machine, let me turn the light on. Ooh, maybe that was a bad thing. I have marked with a pen a red line because that's the one I like to use. So I just put this tool down and just measured where the needle would be and where this would be. So I know, and this is adjustable, I know that when I put my pattern up here to sew, that so long as the edge that I cut, which is the dotted line, is right on here, then I'm sewing in the right spot. So if it sounds abstract at this point and doesn't make much sense, later on it will start to sink in because you'll begin to realize how this whole thing works. Like here, for example, you can see fabric was lost. This was where they cut and then they had to sew. And so this is initially what I'm talking about here, is how much am I going to lose in length based on putting the pieces together. And you're not going to lose a lot, but you could lose enough that something might not fit quite right. So just be careful with that. Now the way that this fabric is, it's very short spool. So as you can see, I will not be able to have both the front and the back side by side going down because as you can see with the taper, they would crisscross. There isn't enough room down here at the bottom. So I'm actually going to have to flip for the back side and have it run this way so that it can angle out this way. And that way I can get the two to fit and not run into any problems. The hood will have to fit into either of the negative space, either here or over here. But this is the way they're going to have to fit because there is no other way. So understand that, you know, spools come in different widths. 60 is the largest. I can't remember the size that this one is, but it's definitely smaller, which is not always ideal, but for the size that I'm doing, it's going to fit. It's going to just fit. So this is just one color. So I'm going to do the entire robe in this, and then I'm going to do the exact same thing in this color. And that's how I'm going to make it reversible. And it will also do a really nice job of covering the seams. And you'll see that later, but it's going to make it a better robe in terms of craftsmanship. And for my purposes, having the double color, it's also going to serve me a little bit better as I grow and as I change and become more confident. At this point, I'm not confident enough to wear the green, but I like the green. So having the brown on the outside is grounding, and having the green radiating from the inside is just a better reflection of myself at this point. And as I become a bit more confident in my craft and in myself, then I will at that point be able to reverse the robe as a part of my coming to be, or as a part of my growing into myself. I'll be able to wear the green on the outside proudly and wear the grounding on the inside and do a complete reversal of what I was. So it's going to be a fun growing into project. But for you need to just understand how it's all going to fit together, and using the robe is a great way of doing that.